Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Microsoft Corporate Vice President, Brad Anderson.
Hey, good morning. Thank you. Thank you and welcome, to the tens of thousands who are watching this live right now and the hundreds of thousands that are going to watch us over the coming weeks. We are so grateful that you would choose to spend this time with us. It's a time of so much change in the industry. It's happening at an ever-accelerating pace. We're certainly seeing this at Microsoft. And, as you're aware, we've gone through some changes recently. And I can't even tell you the amount of excitement and energy inside the company right now as we look to Satya and his leadership. Many of you know for the last 3 years I reported directly to Satya and had a chance to work with him. And I'll tell you, there's no better leader, there's no better human being on the face of the earth. This is truly a remarkable individual that we're excited about. And at Microsoft, we're heavily and busily engaged in building out how we're going to deliver innovation to you over the next 10 to 15 years. But before we go into that, let's kind of reflect back a little on the last 10 to 15 years and think about what we've seen is this explosion of these connected and intelligent devices all connecting to the cloud. 15 years ago, we started to see just the explosion of PCs, and over the last 15 years, we've seen billions of new PCs deployed and connected. Cell phones, smart, intelligent devices we carry in our pockets, billions deployed over the last 15 years. And it's really interesting. In 2008, we actually hit a fascinating point in history where there were actually more intelligent, connected devices in the world than there were human beings. Now we're at this hyperscale of growth where we are seeing the number of devices being deployed around the world growing at a rate we've never seen before. And depending upon whose analysis you look at, by 2020, we're going to have trillions of these devices that are alive, connected, sending data to the cloud that we're going to be able to then operate on top of. So this right here is the world that we live in. We're going to be living in a world where computing will truly be ubiquitous, and it's going to be all around us, and the amount of innovation, the amount of learning, the amount of knowledge that we're going to be able to have at our fingertips will truly be amazing. So what we're seeing is a growing number of users using a growing number of connected devices, using a growing number of applications. All this is just creating data. Data in amounts that in the past was just completely unimaginable. And as you think about how we're going to use that data and how we're going to bring it together, merge it, and pull those insights out, the cloud is going to be core to everything that we do. So our worldview is that the enterprises of today are going to live in an ever-connected world that is going to be highly dependent upon the cloud. And in this intersection where mobility comes together with the cloud is where the transformational changes and the transformational innovation is going to occur. And I think right now we're just barely beginning to scratch the surface of what the possibilities are. Now at Microsoft, again, we're working hard to make sure that we understand how we're going to change so that we can help all of you change as well. And I wanted to give you some insights into some of the most technical leaders at the company, individuals whom I admire, and how they see the world evolving specifically for you in the enterprise and the possibilities that's going to unlock. Let's take a view.
So our industry right now is at the formative phase. Innovation in all segments of business is about discovering patterns so that you can use those patterns to design new product, new businesses.
In this new world, we have so much information. Our phones are sensor platforms. I've got a Fitbit in my pocket. And the ability to bring this data together doesn't cost us anything to collect it. It costs us very little to store it now.
By being connected, these devices can now communicate with each other. These devices can learn. These devices can work on your behalf.
And all of a sudden you have a confluence of two forces. Lots of compute power, lots of connectivity that allow you to hook things up, put a lot of data in a single place, run compute against it, algorithms, complexity, and so forth.
We have a company that has built a manufacturing site for a pretty well-known automobile. Through orchestrating these machines, they're able to build a complete chassis for the vehicle in 82 seconds.
What if we could digitize a forest, quote unquote, and the forest would start to give us data that we can keep forests healthy? The interesting thing is that we at least have two loops always. There's a loop between the device and the data and compute and so forth. And then there is a link to the human being.
There's a thing called the Parkinson's Voice Initiative, where someone has built a machine learning model that will detect early Parkinson's disease just based upon microtremors in recorded voice.
As we make this transformation to a mobile-first, cloud-first world, one of the things that's most important for us is how do we deeply engage customers throughout that journey.
People who are doing small business will be able to engage with their customers better. People working in large organizations will be able to collaborate with their peers and be able to meet people who they should be engaging with that they may not even know.
Very soon, thanks to the cloud, I will open my computer or whatever device I want to use, and the thing that's most important to me, the people that are most important to me, are what's going to surface there.
Winning companies are the companies that are very good at what they do, but that open the walls between what they do and what IT does and really combine the two.
The thing I would encourage everyone for is don't be afraid of it. Just jump on, because the ride is fun.
Start dreaming is really the big thing that I would add. If you don't dream, you won't get anywhere.
I love that statement at the end. If you don't dream, we won't go anywhere. So ladies and gentlemen, let's dream. Let's dream big and let's imagine what's possible as we bring all of this capacity and all this opportunity together. So our view again, mobile in a cloud world, and as we think about this, we are here to help you build enterprises that are mobile first and cloud first. Now, I know what many of you are thinking, how can there be two firsts? Well, the reality is they're one and the same. You really cannot have a cloud without connected devices and vice versa. In fact, if you think about it, a cloud without intelligent devices connected to it is nothing more than untapped potential. And as you think about the connected devices, again, without that cloud, all that you have is potential that goes untapped. So let's now think about how we can work together and build that enterprise that is based upon mobile first and cloud first. And if you think about Microsoft's history, we really, for all of our time, have been focused on how we bring IT professionals, developers, and end users together. So what I literally hope to accomplish today is to walk you through the innovations that we're doing that bring these audiences, that bring these groups of people together, as well as the things that we're doing that help every one of these audiences, IT professionals, developers, and end users, get great value from the cloud. Now, in this mobile-first, cloud-first world, you don't have to move everything that you do to the public cloud to get value. But I tell you, the public cloud can bring value to everything you do. And that's the point that I want to make throughout the morning and prove to you as we go forward on this. So let's start with the IT professional. And when you think about it, all of what we're talking about here is based upon having that incredibly scalable and resilient and cost-effective infrastructure that all of these applications that our users are going to use is hosted on. So for the IT professionals of the world, you literally are at the center of this transformation. Now, as we think about what we want to do here to help you build this cloud-first, mobile-first, cloud-first enterprises, for the vast majority of you, you're representative enterprises who are going to be consuming a combination of private, hosted, and public cloud as we go forward. And what I would encourage you to do as you want to drive and build this cloud culture inside of your organizations is to no longer think about these as separate, but literally think about the public cloud as a part of your data center. So I would submit the cloud is integral to your data center from this point forward. And the cloud is going to deliver things to you and enable you to do things you've never been able to deliver to your customers and to your end users in the past. So let's now talk about what we're going to do there. And to begin with, I want to make one specific point because the organization that you choose to be your public cloud partner is one of the most critical and important decisions you're going to make on this journey. And as you're considering who your partner is going to be in the public cloud, there are 3 attributes, 3 sets of capabilities that I would suggest you require of your public cloud provider. Let me tell you why I think these are important. First is hyperscale. You want to partner with a public cloud provider that is literally deploying hundreds of thousands of servers per year, that is going through incredible growth. And ladies and gentlemen, there are only 3 organizations in the world that are operating at this kind of hyperscale. Microsoft's one of them. And the reason I think this is important is that kind of scale drives innovation. It drives the most innovation on the planet in terms of the infrastructure. And so looking to that public cloud and looking to that partner, you want to partner with the organizations that personally are going through all that innovation as they just try to survive the incredible growth that's happening, because that's going to be important to you in the future. You want a public cloud provider that literally has enterprise capabilities and an enterprise-grade cloud. An organization that is willing and able and is backing its SLAs financially. You know, we have so much confidence in our public cloud that we back it financially. If we don't deliver on our SLA, you don't pay us. And if you think about how this moves forward, and you think about the regulatory laws and the things that we're going to have to deal with from a data sovereignty perspective, an organization that understands the enterprise and understands those needs will build those capabilities natively into the public cloud. That's why enterprise grade is so successful, or so important. Microsoft stands alone in this place, in my opinion. And finally, you want an organization from a public cloud perspective that believes in and is delivering hybrid cloud capabilities. You want that ability to be able to build an application on any cloud, deploy in any cloud. You don't want to be locked in. You have to have that flexibility. This is also how all that innovation that's occurring in the public cloud with these hyperscale organizations can get delivered down to you to use in your data center, is through these hybrid cloud scenarios. I submit that if you take a look at these three requirements and ask yourself which public cloud provider operates at hyperscale, is enterprise grade, and believes and is delivering hybrid capabilities, Microsoft stands alone. And we want to be your partner as we do this. Let me just give you a couple of quick examples of some organizations that are using this in some hybrid scenarios. Walsh, a very large US construction firm, is using Active Directory and Azure Active Directory in a common identity across its private cloud, extending out into the public cloud in very unique ways. Paul Smith, just an iconic fashion brand, is using a combination of private cloud but also attaching to Azure. In fact, they have deployed a private cloud on the Microsoft's Cloud OS, and they've seen a 200% increase in their density, and they've actually been able to decrease their disaster recovery time for their most mission-critical applications from 48 hours to 5 minutes using the disaster recovery capabilities that we deliver in our hybrid cloud solutions. Two other examples. NBC Olympics, with their broadcast of the Sochi Olympics, chose to host all of their streaming and their encoding on top of Azure. Literally broke every record in the books about the number of authenticated users, individual users around the world watching an athletic event during those 17 days, over 100 million authenticated users viewing high-definition streaming. Fascinating case study here, where you've got an organization that has invested billions of dollars that has to make that up and get a return in 17 days. And they chose to do that on top of Azure. And Blinkbox, this is an incredibly innovative video streaming organization in the UK that is in a pay-as-you-go model. Last year, they grew 245%. 245% growth in a single year. So as they were expanding and getting too big for their data center, they made the decision to move to Azure. They now have more than 1 petabyte of data stored in Azure, streaming that to their subscribers and the individuals who are coming up and consuming that content, all based on Azure and growing and growing. Now, one last organization I want to mention, and I think one of the most innovative things that I've seen this year in terms of an organization that stepped back and said, what could we do if we literally had unlimited computing power? How could we change our industry? How could we deliver the world's best game? So I would ask you, in your business, what could you do if you had unlimited computing power? Let me show you what Respawn did with Titanfall. Let's take a view.
Traditionally, building any sort of server technology has been pretty difficult for any developer. We saw cloud computing as an opportunity to introduce hands-off, scalable, on-demand resources so game developers could focus more on the game.
What that means is there's data centers all over the globe, and when you start up the game, it figures out where you are and what the best connection to which data center you have is. And it'll spin up a server, a dedicated server in a server farm for you, fast connection with, fast CPUs.
We can maximize what we're doing, knowing full well that on the back end, we have power there to take advantage of the game.
It makes matchmaking really quick, and then once you're in the game, it's a really consistent experience.
It's a more even experience. There's no host advantage. There's no worry about who's hosting what, and do we have to now reserve performance on everybody's machine.
So you don't have people doing lag switch killing, you don't have host migration, you have just solid gameplay that's fair for everybody. If anyone asks for a server, just throw them a server, throw them a server, throw them a server. And then we replenish that pool from the cloud. And so when we need another one, we just grab it down, put it in our pool, and then hand it out to somebody. So it's this constantly available set of servers all over the globe for anyone.
But one of the things we're seeing that's really amazing about Titanfall is the idea that a lot of the AI and the non-player character is actually powered by the server.
That would not be feasible to do on a game that's client-hosted.
For the first time, I think users are seeing why server technology is really going to make next-generation gaming that much better.
Talk about a company changing the game, no pun intended. You know, just a phenomenal example of a hybrid scenario in probably an application you wouldn't even think about. But I can tell you, day one when this went live, it was such an exciting day as Microsoft as we all came in, and we saw that there were well over 100,000 virtual machines up and running around the globe supporting Titanfall. You know, and then as the game, has become available on other platforms, just boom, you see the number of VMs accelerate up and grow. You're talking about an organization here of less than 150 employees that now has hundreds of thousands of VMs running around the world supporting gaming in a way never before imagined. And I'll tell you, one of the most interesting things we heard on day one was there was a sickness that swept the world called Titan flu, and a lot of people were calling in sick that day, my boys included. So let's talk a little bit about the infrastructure, about the cloud. First of all, it all begins with what we do in Azure. In Azure, we have 16 different regions. The amount of growth is unbelievable. We are deploying a new core every 5 seconds around the globe. And then we use this platform to host services like Azure Active Directory. The last several months, Azure Active Directory is servicing 2 billion authentications a day. A day, 2 billion authentications as organizations are embracing the cloud and embracing Azure Active Directory for their authentication. Then we take everything that we learn, everything that we do inside of Azure, and we bring it out to all of you to run in your data centers. And we start seeing these Azure compatible and Azure consistent clouds being built around the globe. Right here you see a view of just the 20 partners that are a part of the CloudOS network. But we have service provider partners around the globe, again, building these clouds that are consistent and compatible with Azure. And then if you look at any enterprise data center, the foundation of all those data centers around the globe is Windows Server. So literally what you see happening right here is you see a network of compatible clouds being built in private, in hosted, and in the public cloud. And this is important to you because you are not locked in. You have that flexibility to move, to adjust, to expand, to grow, to shrink. You have the flexibility to respond to the needs of the business in a way that's never been before possible. That's why it's so important that we continue to deliver on our promise of consistency across clouds to give you that kind of flexibility. Now, what I wanted to give you a view here, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time in this section, is I wanted to give you a view of the work that we're doing to help you embrace the cloud in these hybrid scenarios. So I want to walk through the things that we've been doing in terms of infrastructure, applications, and then disaster recovery that help you to connect to the cloud and run in these hybrid environments to get that value we've been talking about. Let's start with infrastructure. First thing I would call your attention to is just look at the list of capabilities that are available that allow you to make Azure a part of your data center. Things like the work that we've done around Azure Active Directory and allowing you to expand out to the cloud. A little bit later, we're going to cover this new set of capabilities that we call the Cloud App Discovery Preview and show you the amazing power that's going to bring to you as you get to understand the cloud apps that your users are using. From a compute standpoint, our IaaS is 100% compatible across the different cloud places, private, hosted, and virtual. And today we're announcing what we call compute-intensive VMs, more memory, more virtual machines. This gives you the capability to have a 40 gigabit InfiniBand access with RDMA within region and across region in Azure, enabling you to build out these high-performance, high-scale applications. As we think about networking, one of the most common requests we have from organizations that are really embracing the cloud in big ways is they want to have dedicated links that are high speed because they're moving so much information back and forth between their clouds. So today we're announcing the general availability of what we call ExpressRoute. And ExpressRoute allows you to establish that dedicated connection, and we've done this in partnership with a number of telecom organizations around the world. So AT&T, Verizon, BT, Equinix, Singtel, Telecity, and Zadara. And one of the things that differentiates what we've done from others in the market is you can just add this to your existing MPLS contract, or your MPLS WAN, and we're also redundant. Literally, we provision 2 circuits with every single connection, so you have that redundancy for this high connection, dedicated pipe that you have. And on storage, much of the innovation that we're doing in Azure is coming in the place of storage, where inside of Azure, we run just direct attached spinning media, literally the lowest cost storage that we can find. And then we use software to deliver on the high availability and the resiliency that is needed and is required. You know, last year we talked about Store Simple. I will tell you, Store Simple and that ability to be able to use Azure as a tier for your files, one of the most successful acquisitions in the history of the company. It's just been amazing to be a part of that. Today we're also announcing the preview of what we call Azure Files. So think of now having a shared and common storage in Azure with an SMB protocol head to it that all your VMs in Azure, all the applications that you're writing can now use in a shared manner. Going into preview today that you can start to take advantage of. So innovations in a hybrid environment across identity, compute, networking, storage. Let's talk a little bit here about applications for a minute, some of the work that we're doing from an application standpoint. First of all, applications always require a database. And some of the innovation that we've done in the new version of SQL 2014, are nothing short of remarkable. With the in-memory capabilities that we released a month ago, we are seeing a 30x increase in performance without rewriting your application on the exact same hardware. You know, 30x, I don't think it sounds anywhere near as impressive as when you say a 3,000% increase in the performance of your application. Okay? Amazing technology in SQL. 2 things I want to talk about real quick and then give you a demonstration of one of them. We're announcing today, going into preview, Azure Redis Cache. So literally think about having an in-memory distributed managed cache that helps you to build these highly performant and highly scalable and responsive applications. This is now included in Azure, and we've built this on the open source work that's been done around Redis Cache. Also, we're putting into preview something that we call SLA management. Imagine now being able to take the capabilities you have in your data center or in the public cloud, building an API on that, and then exposing the capabilities that you have running in your data center out to your partners and out to your customers in a controlled manner. That's what API management allows us to do, and it now allows us to unlock the value that we've been building in our data centers for years and share that, and now in collaboration with our partners and customers, build these incredible applications that can now cross the boundaries of our clouds. This is something I think is important for you to see. So what I'd like to do is now give you a view of what we're putting into preview in the API management from Microsoft Azure. Please welcome Josh to the stage. Thanks, Josh.
Brad. Thanks. One of our launch customers for Azure API management is Wellmark, Blue Cross, and Blue Shield. Wellmark are a mutual insurance that serve 2 million members and are part of a trusted national network that serve over 100 million people in the US. We worked with them on a business problem. They wanted to make it easy for their corporate customers to integrate Wellmark's data and services into their own employee-facing experiences. This is the best experience for Wellmark's members because they can find a provider, agent, or dentist in their existing employee portal. Let me show you how our solution, Azure API Management, can help you manage an API program. What I want to start with is Wellmark's partner-facing developer portal. This is where partners come to learn and find how to use Wellmark's APIs, and the entire experience is powered by Azure API Management. Notice how it can be themed to exactly match their brand. And the documentation here that we can see that actually helps developers to learn how to use the API is dynamically generated by API definitions stored in the API management system. And for developers in the room, actually, if you want to know how to call this API, then we can even generate code samples for you. So if you want to know how to call this from a Ruby backend, just click this button, and there's the code you need to invoke this API. So all of this comes together to create a great experience for Wellmark's partners when they need to integrate into their solution. Now, as an IT professional, I need to manage this API program. So let me show you our publisher experience. And this is where IT professionals can securely publish APIs of their choosing. So here's the Finder API that we were just looking at. And as I drill through the options, you'll see sort of the powerful configuration and data available. As I drill into a particular operation, let me give you one example of some of the cool stuff you can do here. So with just a click of a checkbox, I can enable caching. And that's going to improve the performance, reduce the response time, and reduce the load on the back end. Now, as an IT manager, I may be concerned about how I protect my API. Let me show you how we have you covered with our powerful policy configuration system. So go to Policies here. What we're going to do now is apply a policy that adds a rate limit to the API. Policies allow me to change the behavior of the API easily. And we have a vast list of policy statements to choose from format conversion between XML and JSON, all the way up to quota enforcement. And the one we're going to apply now, so we're going to choose a product here. I'm going to add a policy. And I'm going to drop in the limit call rate policy. So here it is. I'm just going to configure this now. What it's going to do is limit the number of calls coming from a given partner to, let's say, 3 within a 60-second period. You can choose any values you like. I hit save, and that's pushed out now to our API proxies. So to show you that in action, I want to switch back to the developer portal and show you my favorite feature of the portal. So I'm going to find the Provider by Zip API, and I'm going to introduce you to our developer console. This is an interactive console that, again, is generated by the API management platform that allows partners to learn how the API works by interacting with it in real time. So here I'm going to enter a zip code, 50316. I'm going to choose a subscription key, which identifies me as a developer, and then I'm going to hit Get. And that's going to invoke the real API straight away. So there we go. We see we got an OK response. I can see all the headers and a beautiful list of providers that are available to me. Now, you'll remember that just a few seconds ago, we implemented rate limiting on this API. So if I hit this just a few more times, let's give it a couple of hits, we'll see that we get a different response on the 4th request. And there we go. Here's the different response now. It says too many requests. And if I move down a little bit, let me zoom out here. If I scroll down, we'll see that we get some more data on that. It says rate limit is exceeded. Try again in 38 seconds. All done with just a click of configuration. Now, as an IT professional who's managing and charged with managing this API program, I need insights into trends, usage, and health of my API. Let me show you how we have you covered with our analytics. So I'm going to click over on analytics here, and we get an at-a-glance view of activity on the API with details of errors, calls, response time. I can see the developers organized by successful calls, bandwidth, and more. Or I can drill in for even more usage details, where I can see calls on a separate graph and bandwidth, geographical distribution of where these calls are coming from. So let's click on the USA, and we'll see a state-by-state view. So what we've shown is how Azure API Management can help you protect an API, get insights into your API program, and also have an awesome developer portal that makes it easy for your partners to integrate. This is available today in the Azure portal. So we challenge you to find how you can unlock the value in your data and services in your business. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Josh. So just to recap, you saw now how we can actually take things that we've learned in Azure, but apply it to your data centers. And you're going to hear this theme throughout the day of how do we help you unlock the information and the data and the capacity and the knowledge that resides in your organization, resides in your data center. And using API management, you can certainly do that. Okay, so let's move on to the third area I wanted to talk about in terms of a hybrid architecture as we embrace this cloud culture. Now let's talk about disaster recovery for a minute, and business continuity. So first of all, you know, with SQL 2014, we released a set of capabilities that we call Always On that gives you that ability to keep a spare copy that's fully replicated and synchronized in the cloud with SQL. Today, we're announcing a couple of things that I think are really intriguing and actually are very relevant, as it's actually one of the #1 things we hear from all of you in terms of requests. First of all, we're introducing anti-malware now into Azure, so you can use the Microsoft anti-malware capabilities. Thank you. You can use these anti-malware capabilities to protect your VMs, as well as protect the Azure applications that you're building. We're also announcing that in conjunction with Trend Micro and Symantec, we're introducing additional security offerings and capabilities into Azure. The other thing we're announcing is what we call encrypted storage for Office 365. And you're going to love what this does. As you embrace Office 365 and you start to use OneDrive for Business, what this provides is the ability to actually have every single file that is stored in OneDrive for Business encrypted with its own key. So driving additional security and additional confidence as you embrace these cloud services, that you know that your content, that you know that the assets of your company are safe and secure. Finally, I want to talk about what we call Azure Site Recovery. Formerly, we called this Hyper-V Replication Manager. What this provides is the ability for you to set up disaster recovery capabilities. Now, what we're adding into preview, and this will be coming in June, is the ability to have Azure be your location where you actually store the copy for disaster recovery. This is the #1 request that we've heard from organizations that are using Hyper-V Replication Manager today. And with this, you have the ability for you to now have a complete disaster recovery solution with the ability to seamlessly fail over, either in an unplanned or planned manner, to Azure. And one of the things that really differentiates what we've done from anybody else in the market is it's drop-dead simple. You can take this and apply it to all of your workloads and your services in your data center. You know, historically, disaster recovery has been something that's been reserved for only the most mission-critical applications for most organizations because it's too expensive and it's too difficult. You're going to see here in a minute the simplicity of this, and I would encourage you, let's have disaster recovery for every one of the offerings in our company, every one of the offerings that your users and your customers are using. And finally, with the incredible automation capabilities that we have, Azure is able to monitor the health of your virtual machines, and when it detects that something is wrong, automatically launch a set of instructions and automation to conduct that failover. Okay, you want to take a look at it? Okay, so do me a favor and welcome Matt. He's going to give you a view of site recovery with Microsoft Azure. Welcome, Matt.
Good morning. Good morning. There we go. Back in January, we announced the general availability of Hyper-V Recovery Manager, a Microsoft Azure-based solution that enables you to protect your core workloads and applications by orchestrating the replication and recovery of your on-premises private clouds to a secondary location. But what if you don't have a secondary location? Well, today, I'm pleased to give you the very first look at a new capability we're bringing to Microsoft Azure Site Recovery, specifically replication and recovery of your on-premises private clouds into the Microsoft Azure data centers. So let's take a look. Now, what we have on the screen here is our site recovery dashboard, and under usage overview, you'll see we're not only protecting a number of Contoso VMs between our on-premises locations, but we're protecting a greater number of VMs into the Microsoft Azure data centers. And if we drill into protected items here, you'll see we've got a number of protected clouds, all existing on-premises, managed by System Center. And what you'll notice on the right-hand side is 4 of them are already being replicated and recoverable into Microsoft Azure. If we drill into the production cloud here, you'll see we're protecting a number of our key workloads: Active Directory, file servers, applications, SQL servers, all centrally configured for replication and recovery using site recovery. You'll notice on the right, they're ready for failover in the event the need arises. Now let's take a look at the configuration of this cloud. And you'll see the target is Microsoft Azure. And if we scroll down, you'll see some of the granular and flexible features that our customers and IT pros have asked for, with replication intervals down to every 30 seconds, 5 minutes or 15 minutes, up to 15 additional recovery points, and integration with app-consistent VSS-aware snapshots. You'll also notice, if we zoom in here, support for encryption at rest, ensuring you can meet your regulatory and compliance requirements. Now, that's great that we're replicating our VMs, but one of the most complex parts of configuring a DR plan is networking. But fortunately, site recovery makes it easy. We'll click on Resources, and we'll see we're in the Networks view here. I'll select my on-premises location that I want to map my networks from, and choose my target location, in this case Azure, where I'd like to map my networks to. And you'll see I've got a number of on-premises networks mapped to some pre-created Azure virtual networks. And we just need to map the very last one that I've created in advance. So I'm going to select Map, choose my target network in Azure for my marketing network, in this case, Marketing DR. And this ensures that when VMs fail over, they're failing over and they're able to connect as you'd expect. So we'll OK that, and that'll take a few minutes in the background. Now, we've talked about replication and recovery, and we've talked about mapping our networks. But how do we ensure that in the event of a failover, our VMs fail over in an orchestrated and controlled way? Because the last thing we want in the event of an outage is to bring your VMs online one by one manually. And that's where recovery plans come in. If we have a look at our recovery plans here, you'll see we've got a couple. One that relates to our on-premises replication and recovery, and another that's focused on recovery into Azure. And I'll click on this one here, and you'll see it's a series of orchestrated steps executed in a particular order. And in the event of a planned failover, where our primary site is still online, we'll first shut the VMs down cleanly, replicate the Delta changes, and then we'll start the failover. And you'll see we're executing in groups here. First, our AD, Active Directory domain controllers, then our file servers, and then our SQL servers that rely on those file servers to be online. And then we get our line of business apps coming online, apps, web servers, line of business apps. Because these are important and critical to our operations, I've actually injected, after that group, what's known as a manual action. And in this case, if we bring up that view, you'll see it's actually asking somebody to physically do something. In this case, the line of business owner is going to log in, check that his app is working, and then as soon as he's happy with it, he can click OK, and the recovery plan will continue from there. So let's close that out, and we'll see our final virtual machines be brought online. You'll see here, if I zoom in, it's not only Windows, it's Linux-based virtual machines as well. And then last, and in many cases least, our marketing virtual machines. Now, if we back out of there, you'll see it's incredibly easy to configure, but how do we initiate a failover? Well, before I initiate, it's important that we test. And you'll see down here we provide support for testing because you want to know that your DR and your recovery plans execute as expected. And this doesn't impact your primary site, and best of all, you can test as much as you need to. Now, to initiate a failover, I'll select failover, I'll choose planned, because our primary site is still online in this case. Now, before I execute, because this is a cloud service displayed in a rich HTML5 interface, I could be accessing this from my PC, my tablet, my smartphone, or even my Xbox One, whatever's convenient. And to initiate failover, I simply click, and that is the power of Microsoft Azure Site Recovery. And with that, I'll hand back to Brad. Thank you.
Just awesome stuff. You know, again, taking disaster recovery and being able to apply it to every single one of your workloads. And this capability, again, to be able to use Azure as your disaster recovery zone will be in preview in June. Just going to tell you a couple of anecdotes about this. One of the wonderful things about operating these cloud services is we get the telemetry back and we can see what's working, what's not working. We can refine and improve. And it's one of those things that is just incredibly rewarding. As a weekly, I get a chance to go dive through all this telemetry, and I take a look where anywhere between 3 to 5% of all the VMs around the world that are being protected with these capabilities have failed over. And every week when I see those statistics and I see that there's been 100% success, I gotta tell you, I'm just filled with joy as I think about the value that we're bringing to organizations around the world. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about kind of maybe the cloud side of pieces. Let's talk a little bit about the mobile side of the pieces now for a little bit. And just like I made the statement about the cloud being integral to your data center, ladies and gentlemen, the cloud is going to be integral to all your enterprise mobility solutions as you move forward. These devices that every one of us bring into the office every single day, you know, we have these devices, they're lit up and they're made alive with all the applications that we download onto them. They're personalized. They really become an extension of who we are. And then every one of us comes into the office with these personal devices, and we want to have the same kind of incredible experience where I can collaborate, discover, find, and engage with individuals around me in the work environment just like I have in my personal environment. And that's the challenge that we all have. And the challenge that all of you have as you enable this is, how do you enable users to be productive on all the devices they love while also keeping the company secure? That actually is our vision statement that we have for this area. Literally, our vision around enterprise mobility is to enable all of you to enable your users to be productive on all the devices they love while keeping the company secure. So let me walk you through how we're doing this. Now, as you think about your needs as you enable this, there are three big categories that I would propose you need to have. And what I hope you see as I go through this over the next few minutes is the breadth to which we are investing and what we're bringing to help you from a mobility perspective is far and away more broad, more rich, more deep than any of the other mobile device management players on the market today. So let me walk through it. It all begins with identity. And what you want to be able to do is leverage the investment you've made in Active Directory for a decade or more. And you want to be able to extend that out to the cloud. And when I say extend it out to the cloud, you want to be able to have that identity be common and used across all the SaaS apps your employees are using around the world. Now, let me give you a fascinating data point here. We're going to show you here in a couple of minutes the ability for us to actually give you a view of the SaaS apps that your employees are using within your company. And as we've worked with our early adopters on this, one of the questions we like to ask before we actually go run this is we ask, how many SaaS apps do you think your employees are using? And do you think they have any idea? No, they don't. They'll tell us, oh, I think they're probably using 25, where on average what we find is there are over 250 SaaS apps that employees are using in a given company completely unmanaged. So we're going to help you bring all those SaaS applications under management, enabling single sign-on for the users as well as management for the IT professionals. Then we have to do a wonderful job of doing device management and application management. And this is all about how you protect and enable the users on these devices. So device protection through mobile device management, and then application protection and the application of the files that are being used within those applications through mobile application management. Now let me ask you the question. What's the first app everyone wants to bring under management on these mobile devices and protect? What's the first app? Email, right? I see everyone's head nodding. The number of times that I've spoke to customers that have said, if only I had Outlook on my iPad for my users, if only I had Outlook on my Android devices for my users, I could give my users such a better experience from what they're currently getting today, where I force down on them a custom-built email application that is nowhere near as functional as what Outlook could provide. So what you're going to see here, and we're going to do this demonstration in two different parts today, we are telling you that we are going to be bringing to the market a set of containers and application wrappers this calendar year on iOS and on Android that's going to allow you to bring your applications under management and manage what happens with the data that's used in those applications. And wait until you see what we're doing with Office and how we're going to bring those beautiful Office applications on your iPad and Android and Windows devices under management in a way that gives your users the absolute best experience on their mobile devices of anyone in the market. Finally, we believe in a layered approach to protection. Mobile device management allows you to protect the device. Mobile application management allows you to protect the application and the data in that application. But we also think you need to have a tier protection where the protection actually travels with the file. So in our data protection, we have a set of capabilities that we call Azure Rights Management Service. And what it allows us to do is actually embed inside of the data file the actual protection and access rights. Let me give you just a very real example, okay? My name's Brad Anderson. I'm sorry to say that's not a very unique name. Many of you probably know of other Brad Andersons in the industry, such as the former CEO of Best Buy and the former head of the Dell Server Division. I can't tell you the number of times when I have received email destined for one of them where autofill put my name in rather than theirs. Okay? That is accidental data leakage protection. With what we're delivering to the market, again, across Windows, iOS, and Android, if that sort of thing were to happen, it doesn't matter because the access rights and privileges and permissions actually travel in the file. The file protects itself. And we know from the telemetry that we get from Office 365 that as we've done this work across all the Office applications and Adobe, we are actually providing this kind of protection in over 70% of all the data files that are used inside of the enterprise today. So a tiered model that allows you to get insights into, the device protection, the application protection, as well as data protection. And this now allows you to enable your users across all the devices that they love and extends your identity management out into the cloud. Now let me talk about how we bring this to the market. Back in March, Satya announced the release of the iPad applications from Office In that same event, he also announced what we call the Enterprise Mobility Suite. The Enterprise Mobility Suite is where we bring all these capabilities that give you the world's best solution for enterprise mobility management. And we've also done innovation about how we package and price it. We know you don't want to have to count devices. So we actually bring this to market at $4 per user per month, independent of the number of devices that they have. Okay, so for $4 per user per month, you can get all of these rich capabilities that I just talked about, enable your users across all their devices, and let them just go crazy and bring in whatever devices they want to have to come into work, because they're going to be more happy, they're going to be more satisfied, and they're going to be more productive. Let me talk about one other innovation that we're bringing that has to do with application management. Every one of you has got vast inventories of applications that you need to deliver down to your users. Many of those applications are Windows-based applications that you now need to deliver down to personal devices, again, across iOS, Android, and Windows. One of the #1 requests we get from organizations is, we don't want to have to build out the infrastructure to be able to host the ability to remote applications to my users' devices. I want you to do that in Azure. So today we're putting into preview Azure Remote App. This is literally a re-architecture, a rewrite of remote desktop services that's been built expressly to run inside of Azure and has been built to take advantage of all the incredible enterprise-grade capabilities of Azure. This now gives you the ability, you're going to be able to upload your line of business applications up into Azure and then have those remoted down to your users' devices, again, across Windows, iOS, and Android. Available today, because we're delivering this as a service, you're going to see us iterating on this at just a rate that's unbelievable, bringing new value constantly. So stay tuned to this. You're going to see us bring a lot of value that many of you are going to have questions about. Now, one interesting data point I'll tell you about this. Back in October, we released the clients, or the applications, for RDS on Mac, iOS, and Android. Since October, we've had more than 4 million downloads of those applications across the stores with spectacular ratings. Okay, you want to see some of this? Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're now going to show you what it means to extend your identity, have identity management in the context of enterprise mobility, and Azure Remote App. Adam, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Brad. Good morning, everybody. Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, Active Directory is the primary authentication mechanism in over 90% of businesses around the world. As an IT pro, identity more than ever is how you are going to control how users get access to data and to applications. I'm going to show you today how our hybrid identity solutions centered around Active Directory and Azure Active Directory are going to help you do this in your business. I'm going to start here as a user, and I'm going to log on to a SaaS application. By way of example, Office 365. I enter my user ID and click Next. Now, the first thing you're going to see is that I'm redirected to a corporate sign-in page. Here I can enter my corporate credentials, the same ones that I use in the office every day, sign in, and be granted access to the application, in this case, my mailbox. Now, I want you to stop and just think about what you just saw. A user went to a SaaS application, entered their Active Directory credentials, and was granted access to the application. We can achieve this because we have connected our on-premises Active Directory to Azure Active Directory. This is the Azure Active Directory Administration Portal. Our company is using Azure Active Directory to provide a single sign-on for all of our applications, on-premises and in the cloud. One of the capabilities that we provide with Azure Active Directory are security reports. These security reports are built using machine learning, and we run these across all of the authentications that happen against Azure Active Directory. We do this at incredible scale. In the time it takes me to say this sentence, Azure Active Directory will have completed 100,000 authentications. That's over 2 billion per day. That's incredible scale. Here you see some of the reports that are there. I can see things like users with anomalous sign-in activity. This is where a user is operating in one mode, and then for some strange reason, something unusual happens and something else happens, potentially a breach. I can see users who are possibly signing in from infected devices, maybe with viruses or malware. And the report that I want to show you today is the sign-in from multiple geographies. This report, which I like to refer to as the impossible travel report, shows me users who have logged in from 2 geographic locations where it's not possible to get between those locations in a given time frame. Here I can see this rather suspicious user, Adam Hall, has apparently managed to log on from France and the United States in under 2 minutes. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure that I can't get from France to the United States in under 2 minutes with any known transport to man. So the most likely outcome here is that a bad guy has compromised my user account and is using it to impersonate me around the world. As an administrator, I want to be able to take a response to that. I can either reset the user's password, or I can enforce a multi-factor authentication. In either case, the bad guy gets locked out, and the user has to re-verify their identity before they're allowed to access any more corporate information. So we have all this information about users, we can see what they're doing, but where do the user accounts come from? If I move across to the users list, here I see all of the users in my organization, regardless of where they originated. And I can use this list to grant users access to applications. The question I have, though, is what applications are they accessing? In a recent survey, over 80% of users admitted that they were using non-approved SaaS applications to get their job done at work. 80% non-approved. As an administrator, that's a big problem for me. These users are storing and accessing applications that I don't know where they are, and I have no way of controlling access to that data. I'd like to introduce you to the Cloud App Discovery tool. This is a tool that, as an administrator, allows me to see what applications my users are accessing. I can see how many applications they're using, and I can drill in and see not only which applications they're accessing, but how many users are accessing each of these applications. This allows me to work with my business to prioritize which applications we want to bring under corporate control first. Once I understand which applications to bring under control, I can use Azure Active Directory, which contains a gallery of nearly 1,300 SaaS applications, to pre-configure these apps so that my users can get single sign-on using their Active Directory credentials. I can even delegate this down to a business application owner and allow them to control which users can access the applications. Now, speaking of getting access to applications, something that I'm very excited to show you today for the very first time is Azure Remote App. This is a new service, as Brad mentioned, that's in preview from today. My company is using Azure Remote App to deliver our applications running on Windows Server, leveraging the power and the scale of Azure. I can publish access to applications that my users can launch and run from anywhere on a wide range of devices using the Microsoft Remote Desktop clients. Azure Remote App is a cloud service, and it will automatically scale up and scale back down based on the load that my users are doing on it. Now, we'll be talking a lot more about Remote App in Foundation Session 02, straight after the keynote, and in breakout sessions throughout the week. So guys, Microsoft is delivering amazing enterprise mobility capability, enabling you to deliver self-service and single sign-on in your businesses today. Thank you, have a great TechEd, and I look forward to catching up with you during the week. Brad.
Hey, thanks, Adam. All right, identity management, Azure Remote App. Let us worry about the scaling. Let us worry about the headaches of managing the supply chain and building out the infrastructure for you to be able to host all your applications and then remote them down to the different devices. You know, one word here as well is, you'll see us continue to work with our long-term partner Citrix in this area as well. And we'll continue to work with them on what they announced last week of all their workspace services coming to Azure, as well as areas around this Azure Remote App as we go forward. So look forward to that as well. Okay, so now let's transition a little bit. Let's talk to the developers in the audience for a minute. And as we think about what the cloud can bring to developers, I would make the statement here that today every one of you from an enterprise organization just has this incredible inventory of Windows applications. It's not uncommon for me to hear about thousands of applications in use that have been built over the last 10, 15 years. In fact, I recently met with a pharmaceutical and a financial organization who told me they have over 10,000 apps that they use inside of their organizations. Right now, in this calendar year, the #1 priority for CEOs around the world is to improve the user experience, both for their end users as well as for their customers. And all of that is coming down to the apps that get built across all these devices to improve the engagement. So I would submit that the cloud is going to be integral to accelerating application innovation as we move forward. Now, as we talk with developers around the world, it's a pretty common and simple set of things that they ask for, but yet have gone undelivered. They want to be able to develop and have a simple development model that can apply across all of the different devices. They want to be able to iterate quickly. They love the value that they hear about that comes from the cloud in order to how you get telemetry back. You can improve, you can refine, you can be constantly delivering out value. And finally, they want to be able to do it in a rapid development process. It really just comes down to how do they get value out faster and faster. They don't want to be locked in some kind of a model where they're only able to get new capabilities out every 6 months, every year, every 2 years. So what we've been working on at Microsoft is how we enable this. How we enable you to build once, run everywhere, with rich applications, optimized for the cloud and the value that brings in a rapid development cycle. So let's talk about multi-device. And let's start right at home with Windows for a minute. At Build, we announced what we call Universal Windows Applications. This is incredible work that the operating system group has been doing where they're converging on a common kernel for all the devices. With Universal Windows Applications, you can now literally have a single project in Visual Studio, and that code, the vast majority of that code, more than 90% of that code, can apply across the entire Windows family, so across PCs, tablets, phones, and the Xbox. Okay? Remarkable set of capabilities, and it's a first and only in the industry that with a single code base, you can actually get applicability and reach to the entire Windows portfolio. Now, let me give you an example of one of the things and some of the innovation that's coming in future versions of Windows. And what I'm going to demo to you here is I want to demo to you something that's in Windows Phone 8.1. First of all, let me just kind of point out, this is the new Nokia 930 that's going to be coming around the world. Beautiful, beautiful device that I would encourage you to take a look at. Now, the first thing that I want to show you here is I want to show you one of the innovations that we call Cortana. Okay, so let's just start. Good morning, Cortana.
Good morning.
Okay, Cortana, the first and only personal digital assistant in the cloud. This is just a native part of the operating system here on Windows Phone 8.1, powered by the cloud, powered by Bing. It gets to know who I am. It watches my preferences. It watches what I do. And then what that allows it to do is when I interact with it, it surfaces up the things that are relevant to me given what my past behavior has been. So let's just give you a couple of examples here. If I click on search here, the first thing is it's going to show me, when I come into search here, is things that are important to me. It's going to show, for example, the weather where we're at. It's going to show, for example, it's tracking my flight home and it would notify me if there are any changes. It knows that I'm a huge Seahawks fan. I wanted to know how they did in the draft. But it's delivering these things based upon what it is that I like to do. Now, let's take a look at what more things that Cortana can do for me. What's on my calendar for Thursday?
You've got 2 events Thursday. At 10 a.m., one-on-one Sarah at my office. And at 3 p.m., planning meeting at room 3210.
I can use this to make me productive. Let's say, for example, I wanted to go schedule something for Friday night. Go see Godzilla Friday, May 16th at 7 p.m.
All right. I'll add Go See Godzilla to your calendar for Friday at 7 p.m. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay, I've added it. Just so you know, you have date night with my wife to see a romantic comedy at the same time.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Cortana's going to be able to help me position Godzilla as a romantic night out, but we'll see what it can do. Find me the best barbecue in Houston.
Here are 10 barbecue places in Houston that have good reviews.
Yeah, so it's able to interact with Yelp. And again, it's just surfacing information that is relevant to me. If I had asked, find me a great restaurant, it would know what kind of food I like and would bring that up to the top of the results because it knows who I am. Now let's watch some of the other things it's able to do. And this is one of the things that is unique to Cortana that nothing else like this in the industry can do because it knows who I interact with from a people perspective. Next time I speak with Chris, remind me to congratulate him on his daughter's graduation.
Okay, next time you talk to Chris Bryant, I'll remind you to congratulate him on his daughter's graduation. Is that right?
Yes. So it knows who I am.
Got it.
and it knows the people that I interact with and is able to make those connections for me. Now, one of the great things about Cortana is say I'm in a meeting and I want to be able to use the capabilities, I don't have to speak to it. I can actually I can interact with the keyboard here. So let's say that I wanted to see all email from Chris. Literally, what it does here is it brings up all the email on the device, and if I were to click on one of those, it reminds me to congratulate him on his daughter. If I got a text, a phone call, anything from Chris, it would automatically remind me. You know, gone are going to be those days when I forget to congratulate people on different parts of their life. Okay? One other thing for the developers in the audience real fast. One of the nice things about Cortana is it has an interface that you can actually take your line of business applications that you're building and enable them for this kind of capabilities. Then the way that you do that is you just simply speak the name of the application and then the request. So for example here, let's say that I have an application and I'm working for a company called Contoso, that's a construction company. Watch what I can do. Contoso, find jobs near me.
Searching Contoso Engineering.
So
there are several jobs near your current location.
So I can take my own internal applications and enable them for this rich kind of experience. Last thing I just want to mention is we've done work inside of Windows Phone 8.1 by introducing the same management or mobile device management capabilities that we've had in Windows, specifically RT, so that this device now can be a first-class citizen in the enterprise, fully managed by the mobile device management capabilities that you have. So universal Windows applications and the applicability across those devices, across the entire family. Now, historically, as developers, we've been faced with a set of decisions as we set out to do a new project, and it seems like we've been in the tyranny of war. Do we opt for building native applications that deliver rich experiences, but now I have to develop multiple applications, it's more time-consuming, expensive? Or do I go for breadth and develop in HTML? Well, with the new version of Visual Studio, we're breaking this tyranny of war. And what we're doing here now is we're innovating across the industry with partners and with open source to deliver incredible capabilities that get you out of that position. So first of all, if you're a .NET developer, you now can use .NET to develop native applications for iOS and Android through the partnership with Xamarin. Literally, one project, and you can then have that automatically built in a way that takes advantage of the unique capabilities of the various platforms and get rich applications with 60–70% of your code common. We use this internally on the Intune team. The self-service portal that you see that you interact with the service is all built using Xamarin. For those of you who are web developers, what we've done is we've integrated now with Apache Cordova, and Cordova has taken the ability to develop what the industry is calling hybrid apps, which is a mixture of HTML and JavaScript, which allows you to have a web app that has a much richer experience. So again, taking you web developers and enabling you to deliver a much richer experience than you've ever been able to do before, all through Visual Studio. The other thing I want to talk about real quickly is the work that we're doing on ASP.NET and how we're going to enable you to take this to the cloud and build the world's best cloud applications using ASP.NET. So literally, we're doing things to make it more agile, allowing you to iterate faster and just be quick in your development cycles. We're making it faster to help you achieve the absolute maximum throughput and scalability. With things like this, you can actually choose what to decide in every application and even in every request. And finally, it continues to be open. It's cross-platform, and we've open-sourced this work to make sure that ASP.NET truly is the best solution for you to build your cloud applications. Now, finally, as we talk about fast iteration and fast time to value, we wanted to show you what we've been doing and the progress we've been making in the application lifecycle delivered from the cloud. And to do that, Brian's going to come up on stage and give us a demo. Give him a hand.
Hey, thanks, Brad. I appreciate it. Welcome. It's good to be back at TechEd. So I'm going to tell you about a few things we've been doing recently in application lifecycle management. So from the beginning, we've thought sort of the key ingredient to application lifecycle management is integration, enabling all of the people involved in software development in your organization to stay up to date with what's happening. We started with a core set of capabilities around developer transparency. Let's understand what's happening with the developers in the development process. Over time, we've built that out, adding capabilities for project management, for testing, about a year ago, release management, and then most recently, application insights that enables you to actually see what's happening inside your application in the deployed environment, whether it's on a server running in your data center, the public cloud, or on a device in your user's hands. helps you understand how it's performing, whether it's reliable, and what your users are doing with it. And of course, we spent a lot lately focused on bringing all of that ALM value to the cloud with Visual Studio Online. A month ago at Build, we announced that we now have over 1 million users of Visual Studio Online, and that it had reached general availability, meaning that it has a financially backed service level agreement, and you can count on it for your mission-critical applications. Of course, we found as people have adopted Visual Studio Online and they try to modernize their application lifecycle processes, that they've inevitably got a set of tools that they use internally. Whether those tools are things they've built or things that they've bought, in order to achieve that core integrated application lifecycle management value, they have to integrate those tools with Visual Studio. So today we're rolling out a new set of open APIs for Visual Studio Online. These APIs are based on open standards. They use REST, OAuth, and service hooks to enable you to integrate any of your existing applications with Visual Studio Online and achieve that end-to-end benefit. In order to sort of show what we can do here, I'm going to invite out Richard White, CEO and founder of UserVoice, to show some of the cool stuff we've been able to do together.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Richard.
So at UserVoice, we're all about helping companies make the best user experience through making user feedback manageable and actionable. And we've helped thousands of companies manage feedback from millions of end users and employees to do this. But I'm really excited to be here today with you, Brian, because the integration we've done with Visual Studio allows us really easily to go from user feedback to engineering and back to the users in a seamless way. So I thought we'd do a quick demo.
Great. Sounds good.
I'm going to be the product manager in this demo, and Brian's going to be the engineering manager. What I'm going to show you real quick here, what you're looking at is actually a UserVoice portal. This is a public portal, some just sample ideas on it. You can imagine your users or employees coming to this, giving their feedback, and voting up the feedback of other users. This is a public portal. Anyone can access this one, but you could even have it privately behind Active Directory authentication. But I'm a product manager, so this is not where I live. I live in here. And this is our admin console, where I look at not just the feedback that users are giving me, but I'm also looking at the data analytics so I know what things we should be prioritizing and putting into our next sprint. So what's really cool is, very quickly I've decided that this is something we should actually work on. This is the thing we should do next. And so I want to send it over to Brian's team so they can put it in the backlog and prioritize it. And all I need to do is go this gear here, click Create Work Item in Visual Studio. I could edit this if I wanted to. I hit Submit. And now you see that it says it's syncing to Visual Studio. So Brian, you should see something on your side now.
Excellent. So it showed up on my list. I'm the developer. It showed up on my backlog. And this, of course, is a pretty important item. So I'm going to drag this to the top, and we're going to work on this immediately. You'll notice it's automatically been tagged as a UserVoice suggestion. So I can super easily search and filter to find all of the items on my backlog that come directly from my end users. Now, my team uses Kanban. So let's switch over to the Kanban board. And we can see that automatically that item has showed up on my Kanban board as a card. I can drag that over into approved, because that's something we're going to start working on. And immediately that's going to send data back to UserVoice so that the product manager knows that we're going to work on that. While I'm at it, let's go in and I'll enter a comment that says, all right, we're starting on that today. I'll save and close that, and let's see what that looks like over in UserVoice.
Awesome. So now that Brian's updated that, marked it as approved, I actually see in my history in UserVoice what's been happening in engineering. And so I see this marked as approved. I see Brian's comment that's starting today. And so I'm going to close the loop with users and send out a status update. So I'm going to mark this idea as started. And this is actually going to not only post on the portal that we started working on this, it's also going to directly message back everyone that wanted this functionality and let them know they've been heard. And so we're super excited about this connection from feedback to engineering and back to end users. We think it's super important for agile, customer-centric companies. And I'm really glad to be here today.
All right. Thank you, Richard. So that's one example of the kinds of things that you can do. I'd encourage you to join me in the foundational session immediately after the keynote, where we're going to talk about dozens of other integrations that we've already built. We're also going to spend some time talking about all the other cool stuff we've been working on in ALM and some of the cool stuff that's going to come out in the coming months. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Brian. It's a great color shirt. All right, so we talked about IT pros, we've talked about developers. You know, in many ways, I think this is where it's actually going to get the most fun this morning. Let's talk about all the innovations that we're doing for users and talk about how in this mobile-first cloud world, mobile-first, cloud-first world, our users can get value, the things that we can do for them. And literally, you know, I think the cloud is going to enable our users to do things they've only dreamed of in the past. Literally, the cloud opens up opportunities that have never been possible for us when you deliver this to all your capabilities that you're doing on premises. So we wanted to give you a view of how we actually do this. And to start with, let's actually take a view of video where if you step back and imagine working in a world that's incredibly connected, what we can do. Let's take a watch.
Today, people are more connected than ever before through social networks, through the cloud, through mobile devices. The world has become a giant network. And every second, people are sharing, learning, and making decisions on the go. They're all part of one hyper-connected world. What if you were connected to everything important? What if you and every person in your company could work together like a network? Suddenly, you're plugged into everything that matters to your business. You're social and collaborating in new ways, exchanging ideas with people across the globe. You're always listening to your employees, customers, and partners. You spot new opportunities to adapt quickly and make change happen. You share documents and information in real time and make decisions faster than ever. When you're working together as one connected network, you can grow your business. You understand your customers, you build better products, and you deliver the best experiences. This is the power of a network. Now's the time to start working like one.
Again, you know, opening ourselves up and saying, let's dream. Let's imagine what's possible in the world of productivity and of data insights and how we enable that across all users, across all devices. So let's get into it. So first of all, you know, as humans, we just have an uncanny ability to achieve if we can only focus. Every single one of us that's listening to this today is faced with this constant flood of information coming into us. You know, the technology needs to help us by presenting to us the things that are personalized, that are relevant to us, that are timely, and help us to move from information to action. Second, we need to open up all of our communications, and we need to literally work like a network. Today, far too many of the communications are locked up inside of organizations along the organizational boundaries. All too often, the sharing and the communication that we do, again, is locked up within those boundaries. We need to open that up, and by default, we should have the ability to share across an organization everything, and by default, we should be in a much more open an environment that is inviting and allows me to increase my knowledge. And the third thing is we have to enable our users, we have to empower them in a responsible manner. You know, so as we think about mobility and we think about enterprise mobile management, we want to enable our users in a way that is enabling, not blocking, as we help them understand how to protect the corporate assets. At the same time, we have to strike the right balance so that IT only has access to policy and express policy on the corporate things on these personal devices and doesn't stray into the personal side of the device. So we're going to talk more about that over the next few minutes. But let's focus for just a minute on going from information to action. And so much of this depends on having a comprehensive data platform. You have to start with a wonderful place where you can bring all your data together, structured, unstructured, bring that all together in one place. You then have to have an analytics engine that allows you to refine, purify, and process that data. In Azure, we have a set of capabilities that we call HD Insight. And HD Insight is built upon Hadoop, and you can bring all your information up into HD Insight, and you've got this incredible and powerful analytics engine there to then start to gain insights. And then you need to get that data to the people. And you need to give that data to all the people, just not the data scientists, and do it in the tools and in the capabilities and things that the customers want to use, that your users want to use. That's why we surface all of this up through Excel. So now the 1 billion users of Office can have this incredible business intelligence experience in the tools that they know and that they love. And this literally is what delivers to you that comprehensive data platform. Again, this is one of those things that you just have to see to understand. So with that, let's take a look literally at how the city of Barcelona is using this to go from information to action. So let's give Aaron a hand.
Thanks, Brad. It's great to be here at TechEd to share with you how our customers are turning insight into action. Now, the city of Barcelona has always been focused on delivering great services to their citizens and visitors. And for those of you who've been there for one of their big festivals, you know they throw a great party. Now, they want to move to the Microsoft Cloud to make it even better. And so the first service I want to highlight here, and they're doing this across many, is called bicing. And with bicing, you check out a bike from a kiosk, you can kind of drive it around the city, and you can check it back into another kiosk. It's a very, very low-cost way of getting around the city. And there's two things they wanted to understand about bicing. One, where are the bicycles all around the city at a given time? And two, they wanted to measure social sentiment and see, hey, what do citizens think of these various services that we're delivering here in the city? Now, as Brad said, not everyone's a data scientist. So in many cases, the employees of the city are using their tool they love, Excel, to do the analysis. So let's start here. Now, all data projects, of course, start with getting some data. And so in this case, I'm going to do an online search right from Excel and find some data around Barcelona. Oops. There we go. And what's great about this is not only does with Power BI, I can not only search public data sources, like here, climate data from Wikipedia around Barcelona, but I also have the ability to look at curated organizational data. So this is data that IT can curate for me, and I, as an end user, know that it's safe and ready to use. So let me check out this one right here. Oh, this looks good. It's got information on street location. And what I really need here is, what are the locations of the bicycles around the city? So let me head and grab that, and I'm going to load that into Excel so I can start to do some analysis, okay? Great feature of online search. Great, now I've got my data. Now, of course, I want to bring in the social sentiment. And here's where one of our great partners, BI Smart, has come in. And what they've done is, as Brad mentioned, is they've done some Hadoop analysis in HD Insight up in Azure. And what this allows the customers to do is it allows you to look at social sentiment data up in the cloud. And what BI Smart has, oh, love it, typing. What this has allowed the city to do is they don't necessarily have to have the data scientists experts, but what they can do is rely on partners to bring that data to them. And here I see the file here, and it's the sentiment data I'm looking for. It's got my tweets, it's got my the sentiment there and positive. This is what I need. So let me go ahead and merge this now with my existing data set. So I'm going to go ahead and merge, and here in Power Query, this is called a merge, and I'm going to use the station location as a way of doing that. And for those DBAs in the room, think of this as like a join. We got any DBAs out there? No, not too many. Okay. Oh, so now I've got the data that I'm looking for, and let me go ahead and bring this into Excel. Okay, great. So now I've got my data. I've got a combined data set. I've got my line of business data that was curated by IT. I've got my social sentiment that was developed by a partner. But it's hard for me to do analysis like this. I really need more power. So I'm going to go to Power Map. And let me go ahead and launch Power Map. Now, what Power Map is a great feature of Excel that allows me to do great visualizations around this kind of data. And here I can see the map of Barcelona, and I can see the location of the different bicycle stations. Well, let me add some more data in. So let me go ahead and add bikes available there like that, and I can see where the various bikes are available. I can also add some street data. So now I can start to see what's happening in the city. I can kind of hover over each of these bars and see the number of bikes available at the different locations. So that's pretty cool. So I've got half of it done. Now what I want to do is I want to layer in that sentiment. And let me go ahead and add another layer, okay? So here we added sentiment. I'm going to go over here, and I want to map in with latitude and longitude the Twitter sentiment. I'm going to show that as a heat map now. And let's take a look at some of the positive tweets. Okay, so there's our positive tweets. Let's look at this. Let's zoom back into the city and see what's going on, see what these correlations might look like. Okay, and then as you can see there, you can see where the bicycle locations are. You can also see that there's a lot of positive tweets around where there's a lot of bicycles. That's great. Well, let's look at the other side of the house. Let's look at where the negative tweets are. So if I just toggle the data just like that, I can see a new trend. You can see now that there's negative tweets associated with a lack of bicycles in that area. Very, very insightful. So think of what we've done so far. We've grabbed curated data out of the data catalog that was curated by IT. We've grabbed social sentiment off of Hadoop and Azure. We've combined that together in a rich visualization tool here in Excel so that end users can start to manipulate and interact with the data. Really, really cool, very powerful. But you know what? This isn't even the best part. The best part is a feature that's called Q&A that's in Power BI service. And with Q&A, you can actually ask a question in natural language and get an answer. So it's kind of like HAL in Space Odyssey, except Q&A is not going to try to crash the ship. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the total bikes available as an example. Okay? And whoops, there we go. And I can look at the total bikes available, and I can see there's about 3,000. Now, how about by street? And this is what's so powerful, is Q&A says, oh, you're looking at a comparison. Let me give you a line chart. Just ask a question and get an answer. How about versus total capacity? So I can start to see some comparisons. I get a scatter chart. I can even look at this as a line chart. And now I can start to take some action. And so the city employees are looking at data like this, and they're saying, hey, where's there a location where the bikes available and the total capacity is the same? Let me roll trucks to those locations, pick up some bikes, and move them over to other parts of the city where we don't have nearly as many bikes. And I can get to that by just asking a question. It's really, really cool. Now, let's also take a look at this negative sentiment. So I can look at these negative tweets as well. And again, I see this correlation where the more negative tweets I see, the fewer bikes are available there. But there's some outliers, like Rosello. That's a street in Barcelona. Should we drill into that? Let's take a look. So I can look at tweet messages for Rosello. And just like that, Q&A gives me the actual tweets that happened around that city. So think about the power of this. Curated data from IT, sentiment data from Hadoop, and I put it in a service like Power BI, and I can literally ask a question and drill into a specific tweet. This is what we're talking about when we say taking insight and turning it into action. Thank you very much.
Right, imagine how much you can revolutionize and empower your users if you deliver them those set of capabilities. Okay, so let's keep going here. Lots of exciting things to talk about in this last segment. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the future of productivity. Let's talk about the future of Office and how we're going to make that manageable for you in the enterprise in this mobile-first, cloud-first world. First, I want to talk a little bit about what we call Office Graph. Think about Office Graph. It's a set of capabilities that run in the cloud based upon the same cloud infrastructure that Cortana is, that's able to understand an individual's intent, of course, based upon historical actions, preferences, and relationships. Imagine then being able to surface up to you timely and relevant data inside of the Office capabilities, inside of the Office tools that apply to what you're doing at that moment on that given day. Imagine being able to open up your email and have it sorted to the thing that's most important to you right then, the task at hand. Imagine going to a meeting and the tool is automatically surfacing up to you all the relevant information for that meeting. That's what we're going to deliver through the cloud, through Office 365. We're going to show you here in a minute. We talked about working like a network. To take that next step and really bring up, take that next leap in productivity, we've got to open up our communications internally within our companies. Far too often, we're still contained within the organizational structures, and by default, our communications are closed. What if by default, all of our communications were open and discoverable across the entire organization? How much more knowledgeable, how much more smart, how much more productive would we be? And finally, we need to enable this across all the devices and really unleash this mobile productivity. Now, let me get specific in some of the things that we're talking about here. There's been a number of tweets this morning asking for more information here. What we've been doing is working across the Intune and Office teams to natively now instrument the Office 365 apps across all the platforms to natively be manageable through Intune. That's going to allow you to do things like control where your users save corporate documents in email as well as the Office applications. It's also going to enable you to manage things like where you can copy and paste to. We're going to take that same set of capabilities and we're going to deliver that to all of you in the form of a wrapper that you can wrap your own applications. Interesting note for those of you who have been working with AppV, what's AppV? It's a wrapper for Windows applications. The team that has built our wrappers is the AppV team, which I would debate is the most qualified organization in the world to build wrappers. This will all be available in the second half of this calendar year. And this combination of Office and of Intune as a component of the Enterprise Mobility Suite will give you far and away the best productivity and management solution for your users. Interested in seeing it? Okay, a little more energy than that. Are you interested in seeing it? Yeah, there we go. All right, let's welcome Julia. Give her a hand.
All right, thanks, Brad. All right. Now, Brad talked about how we can work more like a network with open, discoverable communications, and how we can take a step function in productivity with personalized, relevance-based experiences, and of course, how we can be productive and secure across all of our devices. Now, I'm going to show you both some recently released capabilities as well as what's coming in the future with both Office 365 and Intune. So let me first start here in OneDrive for Business. Now, I know many of you are struggling right now with lots of rogue storage and sharing solutions that your users are bringing in. A lot of them are consumer-based or they're niche vendors that you don't support. Now, with OneDrive for Business, you have an IT-managed business-class storage and sharing solution that you can manage and your users will love. And it now has 1 terabyte of storage per user. Amazing value. And as a user, it's so easy to work with. So all I can do is I can just drag and drop content right into my OneDrive for Business experience that simply. But also, we know users are working on all different circumstances. And I might want to sync and locally sync. So I just click the sync there. And when I do that, if I go to my Windows file view, you can see there's that same content synced locally. So I can be working online or offline. And if I'm offline and make some changes, it just syncs back up when I'm back online. So I always have one source of the truth. But I can always be productive. Now, this is also where I share my content, because I want to collaborate and share with people across the company and outside the company. So to do that, I just click on this sharing icon. And you can see I've shared this document with several people, but I can share it with more just as easily. And so because, again, this is IT managed, as I type additional people like Bonnie, my Active Directory renders up that address list, so I can just grab Bonnie. But I can also share with someone outside the company as well. So, for example, joe@joe.com, or anyone I'd want. And of course, you can configure this, whether you can share just internally or externally as well. And with that click, I've literally taken that document, shared it with someone inside the company to collaborate, as well as someone outside the company to collaborate. Let's talk about collaboration, because that's how work is increasingly getting done and kind of the new default. So if I open this Word document, by default, it opens it into my browser-based experience, Word Online. And I can choose to edit it in my desktop app or on my browser. I'll go ahead and do it in the browser. Now, as it opens it, you'll see that there's actually 2 other people editing, both Garth and Robin. So let me just scroll down here so you can get a sense. I can actually see real time exactly what edits they're making. Look, there's Garth making some edits, there's Robin. So pixel by pixel, I actually see the edits that are happening. Now, as they're making their edits, I want to do some edits as well. And I'm going to show you one of my favorite new features in Office 365, Tell Me. So, maybe I want to add a table, but I can't remember where in the ribbon to do that. I don't remember what that command is. Well, I don't have to care about that anymore. I can just go to Tell Me and say Insert Table. And it takes me not to some help and how-to. It takes me to the actual command. So there, I typed it in. It takes me to the command, and I drop that table in that easily. So again, I don't have to know where that is in the ribbon and find it. I can just drop it in with the Tell Me feature. Now, the teams there, my companions, are making all the edits they want and making the document look great. Now, I'm done with my edits, so I'm going to go back to my OneDrive for Business, and I now want to share this information out with my company. And of course, the best way to do that is using our enterprise social experience with Yammer. So straight from OneDrive for Business, I can just go ahead and post that out to Yammer, because it's all just part of Office 365. So I'll go ahead and post that out there. Now, let's go to Yammer to take a look at that. There is that post that I just made. And this is my great enterprise social experience, but in an IT-managed way, right? And it has all the capabilities I'd want. So I can like it, I can reply. And again, because it's connected with Active Directory, if I want to @mention someone, I can do that. There's my address list, again, rendered, because it's all connected. And it's that simple. Now, because, as Brad talked about, in Enterprise Social, it's open and discoverable. I posted this out for anyone in the company to find. So if it's relevant to them, they have access to it. And that's the new model of how we all want to work. And that's the magic of Enterprise Social. And now this is my all-company view, but it's also about how we work with groups of people, something we do every day. We bring groups of people together to address a business need. And today we have these groups in Yammer. But I'm actually going to switch over to a different Yammer experience. I'm actually going to switch over now to our dog food environment for Office 365, because I'm going to show you what's coming in the future with groups and open communication.
So here I'm in my dog food experience of Office 365, and I have different groups. And here I'm in my marketing campaign group. And you see I have members across the company, but anyone can find this group and join it if it's relevant to them. And you'll see we're discussing some videos and looking at some presentations. Now that's great in terms of being in my Yammer experience, but we're now going to take this lightweight ad hoc groups experience across all of Office 365. And let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to switch over here to my Outlook experience in the browser, Outlook web app. And here's my inbox and my email, as you would expect, and it looks like that. But I also now have groups right down here. And you see those are the same groups I just showed you in my Yammer experience, but they're now in my Outlook experience too. And if I click on that marketing campaign, there, in fact, is that same conversation. So now we're taking the benefit of these open, discoverable communications, but putting it in a tool that people are so familiar with, like Outlook. And everywhere I go across Office 365, I'll have this open communication by default. And we've done some smart things to make sure users know exactly what's happening. So unlike my traditional email, when I'm in my group here, the conversation goes down like a newsfeed, and I reply here at the bottom. Or if I want to start a new conversation, I do it up here at the top. So it's just a little bit different than my personal inbox. So as a user, I know when I'm in my personal inbox versus when I'm in this open conversation. Now, talking about being open and discovering new things, a great example of that. So I work with Jem here on all kinds of projects, not just this marketing campaign. So I want to know, if Jem's in a group, it's probably relevant to me as well. So I want to go see what groups Jem's part of. So I just click on this groups here, and I actually see that he's in 2 groups that I'm not already part of. So I want to go learn more. So I can click into this group, and I can actually get a view of the conversation right here if I want to see what's going on. And I see, yep, this group and this conversation is pretty interesting to me. I do want to join this. So all I have to do is click right here, and I can join right from there. And you'll notice it says it's a public group, which means I can discover it, and I can automatically join. I can also create private groups, which means you need permission to join as well. So different models there. But just giving you a sense of what that open communication experience looks like. Now, if I go back to this marketing campaign here, and Bill's up here asking me about this video that he showed me and whether it would be useful for the campaign. Now, I remember this video. It was in some meeting Bill showed me a while ago, but gosh, I don't remember where it was and where it was stored and if he shared it with me or not. And so what I'd normally do today is I'd probably respond here and ask him where the video link is, or maybe I'd look on my OneDrive account, or maybe I'd Bing it. Well, thanks to the power of the Office graph that Brad described, and our new app, codenamed Oslo, that we've built on top of the graph, one of many apps we'll be building on the Office graph, now I don't have to go look for that information. That information is actually going to come to me. So this is Oslo. And this is an app sitting on top of the Office graph. And the Office graph knows what I'm working on, it knows what my coworkers are working on, and knows our actions we're taking. And it's taking all that information, and it's surfacing here a view of the content that's most relevant and most important to me. So imagine instead opening my Windows File Explorer and just seeing a list of content. That's not very useful. But this is actually showing me real time based on my actions and the actions of people across the company. This is the information that's most important to me, that's most relevant and totally personalized. This is my view uniquely. And it tells me why. So if I go to this marketing campaign here, it shows me that it is modified by me, that it is trending around me, which means my coworkers and people that I'm working with are also taking action on this document, that I've liked it and I've viewed it. So again, this is real time, always being updated by that intelligence layer sitting in the Office graph. But this is kind of my default view, right, when I come to Oslo and see what's most important. But I can use Oslo to do all kinds of different searches. And we have some default views that we think people will use a lot, like what information has been presented to me, what's been modified by me, liked by me, shared with me. Let me go to presented by me, because this is a really powerful experience. Again, the Office graph knows what meetings I'm in, who are in those meetings, what content was shared as part of that meeting. And here in a single view, it renders that for me. I don't have to go looking for it. This is content stored all across my company. Doesn't matter. In a single click, I get this view. So, so powerful. But I can also use Oslo to do natural language search and, of course, search for people, too. Well, as Bill was the one asking about this video, so let me go search on Bill. When I bring up Bill, see, I have 2 views of him. First, I have this side, right, which is pulling from my Active Directory, which is his hierarchy, who his manager is, his peers, and his directs. And that's useful information, and that's good to get that. But now, thanks to Oslo, I can actually see more relevance-based information, how Bill's spending his time, who he's working with, who he and I are both working with. So I can discover this information, and it's relevance-based information, really powerful. Now, as I go down, I can also see what content is trending around Bill. Now, I want to be really, really clear. I only see content here that's also been shared with me. The Oslo and the Office Graph absolutely respect the privacy and permissions and the security around content. So I see what Bill is trending around Bill that I also have permissions for. And there, in fact, is that video that Bill was asking about. Again, I was able to simply find it by searching on Bill, and it rendered to me. So hopefully get a sense of some of the fantastic new capabilities coming based on that personalized, relevance-based experience. Well, now, let me switch over and talk about working and being productive on all devices as well as being secured on all devices. So I'm going to switch over here to my iPad. Now, some of you might have heard that we launched Office for iPad recently. It's a great, great experience. So let me just give you a little sample of what it's like. So let me open Word here. And everything by default, again, it's stored in the cloud, right? So I have access to it across all my devices. So I can go here and open that Northwind proposal, that document that I was just working on in my Office Online experience, and I want to work on it here on my iPad as well. And as I open it, you can see, of course, it looks fantastic. My document looks exactly like it should. There's my rich table of contents. I go down, and there's that table that I just added when I was in the browser experience over here. Again, one source of the truth with OneDrive for Business, and even SharePoint Server can be behind this as well. Now, you see the ribbon is just like you'd expect. All the commands are where you'd expect them with that great Office experience. And again, this is a very, very familiar Office experience. It's unmistakably Word, but it's also really natural on an iPad with touch. And this is an important design paradigm we balance, making sure that it's a familiar Office experience, yet great and native on the iOS experience as well. So that way our 1 billion Office users can drop right into these apps and be confident from day one. What's also really easy for me to interact with touch on these devices, so I can just select in here and grab some text, and I can grab it there. And you'll see by default, I get kind of the most common things, cut, copy, paste, but even define, I can bring my dictionary in all with touch. But I can do sophisticated things too as well. If I want to go and see themes, I could actually change the whole theme of my document from these apps. So there really are powerful apps. And if I go down and I say, grab this chart down here, something I built in Excel, brought over into my Word document, you'll see when I tap on that chart, I get that context-specific ribbon command up here. I can go to my chart, and I can, right here in Word, I can change the style, I can change the themes, I can see different renderings of this graph. Even though it was created in Excel, I can manage it within Word. Again, that great promise of a rich productivity experience. And the great thing about this is I'm making changes and working on my document on my iPad. I know that it'll look fantastic if I go and open it on my PC, my Mac, my phone, in the browser experience, or if I share it out to anyone else as well, I know it looks great to them because we always keep that file fidelity exactly right. So you know your content is never lost and your formatting looks awesome. And just like all of our Office apps, of course, we have co-editing right here in these apps as well. So there's Garth and Robin editing this document now here when I'm working on my iPad. Again, all saved to the cloud, co-auth, all works across the apps. All right, that's what we have today on the iPad, and there's other apps too. I encourage you to download them and try them if you haven't. But let me actually switch over to a different iPad, because I'm going to talk about what's coming in the future in a partnership between Office 365 and Intune that enables mobile device management of these Office for iPad apps. Essentially, this will enable corporate data to remain within IT-managed environments while giving users that Office productivity experience that they love. Now, on this iPad specifically, IT has applied policies and controls on which apps I can use for business purposes and where the data can reside. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to start in my OA app for iPad. Here in my email experience, of course. Now, Brad has actually shared this Excel file with me that I want to take a look at. So I'm going to go ahead and open that Excel file. And it opens it in the default viewer, and it looks awful. But that's OK. Luckily, I have my great Office apps to open it in. And you'll see when I go to open it in a different app, it's only showing me apps that have been approved by IT to use for business purposes. I, as a user, am not shown other things, so I can't mistakenly open it in a different app. It guides me to just the right apps, which is a great user experience and all the IT controls I want. Now, there's my Excel file looking as it should, giving you a little glimpse of what the App Store charts look like when we launched our new apps. And here is the latest download information about the apps. And it looks like we have about 27 million downloads of these apps. Not bad, just the top 10 countries. Want to share that great download information with some coworkers. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And now I'm going to try and share it. And I'm going to first try using my native email app on the iPad, right? The app I use for my consumer purposes. And this has not been approved by IT to use. But I'm going to try to do it anyway. So I'm going to open a new email. And I'm going to paste this content in. And when I select there, you see there's no option to paste. That's been turned off. Thanks to those Intune policies, I am not allowed to do that. So I, as a user, am protected from putting business data in a non-managed app. So instead, let me go back to my OA for iPad app that is approved for business use and send an email here. So let me go select in there, and you'll see there I can paste because this is an approved app. So my business content stays only in the managed apps. So just to give you a sense of what's coming to enable data protection and IT control while still giving users that fantastic Office experience that they want. So we've covered a lot of ground, so just to quickly recap, first, talked about IT-managed storage and sharing solutions with OneDrive for Business. So now you can get all of your company's sensitive data out of all those boxes it's sitting in and put it in one holistic, secure solution in Office 365. We also talked about how you can help your organization work more like a network with Yammer and the new future Office 365 groups. We showed you the new Oslo experience that's based on personalized, relevance-based rendering, putting it at your fingertips. Also, the Office for iPad apps, that no-compromise productivity solution, and what's coming in the future to be able to manage those apps with Intune. With that, back to Brad.
Thank you. Just awesome, right? Look at that experience that you can deliver to your users on all their mobile devices. The best experience for your users, centered on Office, the best experience for the IT professionals in ensuring that the data that is being accessed is secure. This literally will be your baseline and will be the bar that the industry will be held to in terms of enterprise mobility management. Real quickly, let me tell you about 3 customers using this in innovative ways. Mitchells & Butler, okay, a pub and restaurant chain through the UK. They're going paperless. They're actually giving all the wait staff iPods. For the front of the house, they're using Android tablets. They're managing all that through Intune. In fact, this organization, through a combination of System Center and Intune, is managing 20,000 PCs and mobile devices with 2 individuals. Amazing. Okay? British Airways. British Airways just has this relentless focus on how they deliver the best absolute experience to their customers, to the people who are flying. And they've actually embraced Office 365. Today they have 11,000 individuals who are on Yammer. The ground crew, the flight crew, the people throughout the terminal can real-time be problem solving to make sure that they are always delivering the absolute best experience. Callaway Golf, leading provider of high-end golf products around the world, using Azure to deliver their services down to their customers and to their employees, also using Intune to manage the executives' laptops and their Salesforce iPads around the world. Amazing capabilities. So as you think from Microsoft and you ask the question, what is Microsoft's enterprise mobility platform? It's Office 365 combined with the enterprise mobility suite, all built on top of Azure Active Directory. That will give you the ability to enable your users on all their devices and extend your identity out to all the applications across the cloud that they want to use. This is, bar none, the most comprehensive solution to enable your users on all their mobile devices. And please take a look at it. So what we talked about today is we truly are living in a world that is focused on mobility, that is focused on the cloud. You can see that we believe deeply in this. We believe deeply in mobile first, cloud first. And you can see that our innovation agenda is completely wrapped into this. And we're focused on how we enable you to embrace this, starting from where you're at today. Thank you for coming to TechEd. Thank you for enabling us to partner in your business. It means a lot to us. And you know what? Together, let's go build the mobile first, cloud first enterprise. Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's Channel 9 Live at TechEd North America.
This is definitely a larger screen size area than what we're normally used to, but we're doing a post-game wrap-up, are we?
Yes, it's the post-game show, the keynote post-game show. Hey, so much for not having announcements at a TechEd keynote, right, buddy?
I know, there's just a few that were dropped today, I think. I'm glad you get to do the follow-up on that one there, because I didn't take as many notes as you did on that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So to give you folks at home a rundown of what's happening, we're going to do a short press briefing. For those of you on Channel 9, we're going to leave you at 11 o'clock to head to the foundation rooms. Of course, those of you watching on Press Pass can stay around for that press conference. But for Channel 9 Live, we have got, it's jam-packed, dude. Jam-packed.
Let's just say that we are covering everything from the moment TechEd starts until the last session closes on TechEd Live. And then Channel 9 Live, Taste of TechEd, I guess the proper term.
Yeah, the sessions, right?
The sessions, and then during the breaks and during lunches, we're going to be going off and having interviews. I'm actually kicking the first one off.
So, did you just completely change your entire agenda is what happened there?
How could you not? I mean, I'm going to be talking with Corey Sanders for my first interview, coming up at 12:15, I do believe.
Yeah.
I think that's around it.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
He's one of the go-to guys for infrastructure as a service for IT pros.
Yeah, absolutely, and some big stuff there. Was that your favorite thing that you saw today?
For me, the favorite thing would have to be the Hyper-V Recovery Manager. I was always a fan of it right now, as it was, but
Sure.
being able to simply coordinate between SCVMM on one data center and the other data center. But now the fact you can actually use Azure as a target, to me, that's a game changer, dude.
It's remote app.
Remote
app, Azure remote app. And then
Yes.
also the discovery stuff, that app discovery stuff, where you could actually see
all the
it's
sass-
amazing. Did you see that 80%?
See all the sassiness that's going on inside your organization.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So jam-packed schedule. We're going to do this quick press conference here shortly, waiting on Brad and the rest of the team to arrive. Then, dependent upon, now I know foundation sessions are going to actually start a little bit later. Because the keynote ran a little bit long, so I've just been told breaking news. We're breaking news right here.
Okay, we're starting foundations a little bit later.
Yeah, about 15 minutes.
15.
And they'll run their entire time, which means that I think we're going to lose the final countdown show.
Oh man, we had scheduled from 12 to 12:15. We had a surprise we were going to do, and now we can't do it.
Well, I still think we can do the surprise.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to be an issue. And then you're going to talk, you mentioned, with Corey Sanders,
Yes.
talking about cloud and how that relates to IT professionals. We've got Wally Mead. Yeah, Wally Mead's going to be joining us
Nice.
with Simon at 12:45. Jeffrey Snover, some PowerShell Unplugged action.
Yes, that's going to be fun as well.
That's going to be awesome. And then we're going to shift to a little bit of a developer focus where we've got client development Q&A. We've got remote app mobility and bring your own device at 3 o'clock. There's just a ton of stuff. We got Brian Harry coming on at 3:15 as well.
The good thing is we have a good blog post that has the entire schedule all listed out, but I see that your guests are ready to go. So,
Yes, the guests are ready to go.
I'm
Let's-
out of here, buddy. I got to
yeah.
get down to the stage.
All right, we'll see you later on. Thanks. So let's shift over and let's introduce to you guys our panel of esteemed guests for the press conference, where we just want to kind of sit down and have a little talk about the fantastic announcements and the news that we talked about here. So I've got Brad Anderson with me, Mark Krasinovich. I've got Jay as well.
And me.
The whole thing that breaking news 15 minutes has completely thrown me out of my game. So, Brad, let's talk a little bit, just kind of give us a couple minutes with each of you to cover those kind of the key things that you want everybody, we've got press here as well as around the world, what you want them to take back from what we just saw at the keynote.
Okay. A year ago when we were at TechEd, we came out and announced the R2 set of releases of 2012 and showed that we could literally turn around an entire version of the offering, an entire new crank of the wheel, if you will, in a year. Over the last year, we focused intensely on how we help organizations attach their various clouds. And you saw throughout the keynote the amazing amount of work that we've done to literally help Azure just become a part of an organization's data center. And delivering incredible scenario. And the key thing I think for everyone to walk away with is literally the cloud can add value to everything that you do. And there are certain things that you saw, as you saw, for example, aspects of the Office graph and different aspects from our identity management that literally are only possible as we do that in the cloud with all the machine learning and all the things that enables that. And then I went specifically into some of the things around enterprise mobility. Yeah, and the two significant announcements that there, I think that everyone should be really writing about is one, the integration that's happening across the Enterprise Mobility Suite and Office 365. In terms of what's being talked about in the market, the enterprise mobility management is one of the top topics. And as you take a look at what we're bringing to the market later this year, it absolutely delivers the best experience for end users, all centered on that incredible Office experience across all devices. Bringing management on top of that so that the IT professionals can help the user keep their personal stuff separated from their corporate stuff. Then married that with the comprehensive nature of what we're doing across identity management, mobile and application management, and data management. That combination is more comprehensive, is more complete than anything on the market, period. The other thing we announced was as a part of this delivering applications to users across all their devices is what we call Azure Remote App. And that literally enables organizations now to be able to upload all their applications and remote that down to all their user devices across Windows, iOS, and Android. Every single organization I talk to has got a very large inventory of Windows applications that they're now trying to deliver down to all their users across all their devices. With Azure Remote App, we worry about the infrastructure. Organizations can scale up, scale down on demand, and they only pay for what they use. And so their capital expenditures go down dramatically. It's much more simplified, and they can take advantage of the global presence of Azure to do that.
So speaking of Azure, Mark, you completely just, as far as me as an IT guy, the announcements that you made there talking about just, disaster recovery scenarios and the things that you have. A couple of points there on what you want folks to take away.
Yeah, well, for one is the GA of ExpressRoute and the announcement that we've had over the past actually few months of bringing on board major ISPs and telcos from around the world, from Verizon to Orange, all covering even Asia now, where customers, again, to the theme of the hybrid and connecting on-premise to the cloud, customers can come into fiber hotels or using the ISPs, have direct lines into Azure's backbone with provisioned amounts of bandwidth, which is something that a lot of customers want so that they're not traveling over the public internet and competing with Facebook and Twitter and everything else on their way into the Azure data center from their on-premise environments. Also in the theme of hybrid is the Azure Files announcement that we made today, the preview of that. Azure Files is kind of in the theme of the consistency we want between hybrid and the public cloud. So many applications are written to use file shares, SMB file shares. And when you take those applications to the cloud, up until this point, you would have to provision VMs and then manage file shares from that if you wanted those applications to continue to work that way. Now with Azure Files, it's essentially file sharing as a service, where we've got a PaaS file share service. You just easily configure it, and now your applications that are running in VMs up in Azure can access shared files between themselves without having the management of setting up those file share servers explicitly. And then there's a bucket, like you mentioned, Azure Site Recovery, which is also in the vein of hybrid and the failover from on-prem to the cloud, where you have your own data center assets that you want to continue to use, but you also don't want to go and provision another data center for your failover site. You want to take advantage of resources up in the cloud so that they spin up when you need them. And that's where Azure Site Recovery comes into play. You have a problem with your on-premise data center. Now you can very quickly fail over up to the cloud environment. And then finally, in business continuity, security is very important. And we had a few announcements there. So for example, Microsoft Anti-Malware now, which is basically anti-malware, managed anti-malware. You can think of it up in Azure. So you can, with just a few clicks in the portal or PowerShell scripts, you can deploy Microsoft Anti-Malware into your virtual machines or your PaaS cloud service deployments in Azure. You can very easily have those logs from the anti-malware engine get sent to Windows Azure Storage, or Microsoft Azure Storage rather, so that you can go and perform analysis on those log files. And then we also had announced a couple partnerships with good partners, Microsoft partners, Trend Micro and Symantec, to deliver their antivirus solutions into the cloud, also through the portal and PowerShell experience. And then finally, with Trend Micro, also a BitLocker type solution, an encrypted disk solution where the keys for the encryption are actually stored on your own site. So for those that are really paranoid about having keys up in Azure, this is where you can manage the keys and release them to those VMs from your own on-premise solution. So those, I think, are the things that I'd focus on.
Just a couple of things, right? Like just a couple of things. Jay, talk a little bit about, and it became very clear to me watching on stage the continued commitment around .NET and the things that we're doing there, particularly in this new cloud-first, mobile-first world.
Absolutely. I mean, I think to me, the last couple months actually have really represented a set of conversations and demonstrations of how we are really focusing on ensuring we're providing a set of development tools that are increasingly open, that are collaborative, that are very cross-platform friendly, and doing so in an extremely open way that meets the needs of the entire development team, from application construction through the actual lifecycle management tools, right? And really all centered around bringing development teams and giving them the tools they need to go from where they are today to take advantage of this mobile-first, cloud-first kind of world and the kinds of needs they have on application development to do so. I would say definitely, as a person on the .NET team, that revival of the spirit of .NET and the importance and its role is definitely been true the last couple of months. Brad talked about it today a bit, the focus on the next release of ASP.NET and providing a set of optimized framework and runtime experiences for cloud and web scale development, right? Everything from faster performance and startup times through leveraging the new .NET compiler platform as part of the runtime tool chain, to increasing the flexibility of the framework, allowing developers to pull in only what they need for their applications, and ensuring they have the ability to be agile by providing complete framework side-by-side support at the application level for those cloud scale applications going forward. I think that's one of the key things. Second, obviously, is looking at the device space and thinking about looking at the work we've done, first shipping the second update of Visual Studio 2013 that provides the universal app support for building one application that spans the breadth of Windows devices, but also just today putting an early preview of a set of tools for HTML and JavaScript developers to build hybrid device apps, integrating Visual Studio with the Apache Cordova project to provide really rich experiences for folks leveraging their HTML and JavaScript assets to do those device apps. And I'd say the third big thing for me is really kind of in that application lifecycle space and the creation of a set of APIs and service hooks that open up our Visual Studio Online environment, allowing partners and developers to integrate in and bring in the tools they already use and the products they already use as part of their development lifecycle into this new modern development world.
Excellent, excellent. Julia, Mark talked a lot about kind of that security aspect. And when we start talking and thinking from an IT perspective, I mean, personally, we talk about that security thing. We're mobile first, cloud first. Okay, now the immediate thing that pops in my head is how do I secure that data? How do I deal with that? And you showed some really cool stuff around Office and some of those things going on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we've heard recently from us about great user experiences and Office and iPad and things like that. But today, we're also bringing together a bunch of new security and privacy capabilities. So the first is extending the DLP, the data loss prevention policies that we've had in Exchange Online, into SharePoint sites as well as OneDrive for Business. There's been a lot of demand for that. So being able to look deeply into the content and categorize it and help the user to make sure that they're putting only the right kind of content and it's secured appropriately when we do. And then we're also extending our encryption capabilities to all the content within a OneDrive for Business and SharePoint Online as well. So the content down to the file level is encrypted with a unique key. So kind of extending that, what we again have had an email and secured in another encrypted way, down into our SharePoint and our OneDrive for Business capabilities. And then with that, we're actually doing a pretty big revamp and kind of update to our Trust Center, the Office 365 Trust Center, where we talk about everything we do from a security, a privacy, a compliance perspective. And we have a whole new series of videos and blogs from the engineers that build and run the service, so all of our users can really understand exactly what happens and trust, right, and understand what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to your questions here shortly, Brad. I've got one that really popped out in my head, and I think we talk about this almost every time we sit down, but the more we keep going into this, we show off these amazing technologies and cloud services, and the mantra has been, because of the buzz that we got at Build, and we're starting to see kind of this amazing feeling of the event, same thing here at TechEd, the buzz, that mobile first, cloud first, okay, what does that really truly mean? We make it easy for people to get to the cloud, but what does that mean for the IT guy and that on-premises world as well? I mean, that on-premises world is super important for us still.
Yeah, and I think maybe as a part of your question, one of the concerns that we'll often hear from IT professionals is, as I start to take advantage of the cloud and start to use some of those capabilities, what does that do to my impact in the company? Okay. Sure. And it's really interesting. We've actually done a fair amount of research going back into the companies that have embraced a number of our cloud services and asked that question. Okay, so now 6 months, a year into you embracing these cloud services, what's happened. What we hear from these IT pros is their ability to innovate and their ability to deliver value to the business has accelerated and improved, and actually their importance in the company has increased. So it's one of these places we just have to help the world understand and take those first steps to start to embrace cloud. That's why you saw so much investment in making it easy for an organization to just start to embrace Azure in different ways, embrace the public cloud through these hybrid scenarios. And what we find is as soon as an organization embraces one, the next one and the next one and the next one just come rapidly because they see the value, they have confidence that their actually careers are going to advance. They see the value to the business, and it just steamrolls after that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, that was very clear. Those on-ramps, I guess is the way to call it, particularly, Mark, as you look at that, disaster recovery scenario. I mean, just very quickly, now I have something that's enterprise scalable, available to almost anybody in the IT world. So any questions here with the audience? For those of you watching at home, we're going to stick with you all the way till 11:15 when we drop you to the foundation session. So we have questions for the press who are here. We've got a microphone roving around. There is a question in the back corner there.
Yes, good morning, folks. Scott Fulton from Pierce Enterprise Communications. 6 years ago...
Can you turn that up a little bit?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Much better. 6 years ago at TechEd and PDC, the keynote message was essentially, Windows Server will fulfill all the roles that you can imagine in your data center. Is it fair to say that today, in 2014, that entity that fulfills those roles in the data center is Azure?
Yeah, I'll start here, then maybe you can add on to it. Windows Azure is built on Windows Server. When we think about Windows Azure and Windows Server as really kind of one and the same, as one continuum that we enable organizations to stretch out from the enterprise out into the cloud. So in response to your question, that combination of how you can deliver the best platform for your users, for your organizations, to build new businesses, to drive greater satisfaction, truly is that combination of an on-premise and cloud, because that's where most of the enterprises are starting at. So it's that combination that I think is magical and allows you to do anything that you need based upon Windows Server and Azure in the cloud.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate what you said by pointing out that when we were saying server back then, we actually meant System Center plus server, and it included basically those were the same, and now it's server, System Center, and Azure as the continuum.
Yeah, and even a fascinating data point, maybe everyone in the room knows this or doesn't know this, but for example, Hyper-V, the hypervisor that we ship in Windows Server, is the exact same hypervisor that all of Azure is built on. So as we talk about this, the consistency across clouds, more and more you will actually see commonality, actually the same exact bits that we put up in Azure, prove, battle, harden, try it, and then we bring it down on premises into the cloud. So a lot more commonality is one of the things you'll see from us.
Yeah, and it's not just Azure to server that we're performing that kind of cloud cadence to snap back to box products that go back to on-premises, but we're doing that across all our product lines. If you look at SQL, if you look at Office, all of that's working the same way.
Okay, moving along. There's another question here in the audience here at TechEd North America.
Yes, thank you. I guess this is for Mark. It's kind of technical, right? So the new Azure Site Recovery functionality, where you can replicate your VM up there, would that require a System Center, or is just the operating system itself enough?
Does that require System Center? Actually, I don't know how that's packaged.
Yeah, so the way we actually package it up is you come up and you buy a service up in the cloud that is literally, today it's called Hyper-V Replication Manager, and it's being renamed to Azure Services. It does base upon Virtual Machine Manager and Hyper-V, so it does require you to have System Center. And to kind of give you an interesting data point on that, if I were to ask you, in the last 12 months, what percentage of Windows servers that have been purchased new or renewed worldwide in the enterprise also purchase System Center to manage it? That number is more than 2 out of 3 servers that have been sold in the last year also attach System Center to manage it. So it's ubiquitous.
Other questions here in the audience? Everybody's so quiet. So quiet. I want to continue down the security path. And because that is definitely security, antivirus. The big concern, how are we making it easy, I think is the big question. We're starting to say, okay, yeah, we can do some of these encryption things. What are we doing to really kind of on-ramp, make it simple so that we're not thinking about that? That is not front of mind for us in IT.
Julian, you may want to start with what we're doing in Office to make that easy, and then maybe I'll kind of follow back with some of the things from an infrastructure component.
Right, essentially, in the way we're balanced, I mean, there's been security technologies for years and years and years, and in our view, have kind of inhibited productivity and made you less productivity. But now the way we're doing it is it just should be taken for granted. It's just built into the service. So Office 365 absolutely has the security, the privacy, the compliance, just ingrained in it, but it's done in a way that it doesn't disrupt the user. And so we have some principles like the ability to break glass. So maybe I'm trying to send something to someone I'm not allowed to send it to. So I get a note that says you're not allowed, but I can override. I can click that override and say I can still get my job done. I can judge it as a user and get that email out, but also it's tracked and it's audited so the company has that information. So again, for me, from the Office perspective, it's absolutely built in and it's seamless, but we're also really thoughtful about that user experience not being disrupted while the enterprise has the security that they need.
And we've learned a great deal as we've been working closely with the Office team on that exact principle, which is how do you just make it seamless and enabling rather than getting in the way. I think all too often, as I take a look at the solutions that are on the market today around enterprise mobility management, it seems like the approach has been, let IT kind of get in the way rather than letting the user be enabled to do what is right. And so we've taken a lot of learning. So I'll just give you just a couple of interesting data points. Look at Microsoft Security Essentials, our anti-malware. The thing that I hear when my family, when my neighbors call 1-800-CALL-BRAD is it works, it's there, I don't know it, but I know that it's working. It's seamless. And so I think that kind of experience where you literally are able to demonstrate the value, but do it in a way that the user is not even aware that it's happening, or in the places where you do have to interact with the user. Julie gave a wonderful example of, hey, you're about to send information outside of the company. Are you sure you want to do that? The user can override, but just make it a natural part and put the user front and center in everything you do.
Fantastic, fantastic. If there's not questions in the audience, questions? So no, then, we've set it up there.
Yeah, go ahead. Put a little closer.
J. Peter Brzezzi, InfoWorld. One of the questions I have with regard to Azure is that when I'm talking with folks and consulting, and they want to move to something like Office 365, it's an easy pitch because the price point is right. But what I found is that with smaller businesses, especially when you're looking at the Azure calculator and you're starting to figure out what is this going to cost, immediately the numbers jump and people get afraid and they say, no, you know what? I'll stick with my on-premise servers. So I'm just curious about that. If there's any plans, packaging-wise, to offer some kind of a small business initiative.
Want to take that, Mark?
We don't have any plans right now that I know of for a small business package, but I think one of the things that you got to remember when you're looking at those price calculators and you're trying to compare it to an on-premise solution is that you're outsourcing your IT operations infrastructure personnel to Microsoft as part of that cost. So you can't just simply compare the cost of a server per hour with I bought a server and how much does that cost me over the 3-year depreciation, because what's included in that is the cost of setting up the network infrastructure for that, the power for that, the personnel that are maintaining that, keeping it highly available throughout that lifetime as well, which factors back in. And then on top of that is the agility of it. It is the ability to get in and out of servers instantly. So you can get in, and we actually have per minute billing right now in Azure. So you can go spin up servers very quickly. You can take them out really quickly. So as your business expands, you can quickly get those things in. And that's a key part of the agility of business that they need to have today is not wait a month to get a server set up and ready to go, but you can get it up in minutes.
Yeah, I think if you take a look at look at kind of the breakaway hits in the last 1 to 2 years in terms of the consumer services, how fast they went from kind of 0 to 5, 10, 20 million users. I mean, they did that all within the space of, say, a year. And so while these organizations may start small, the ones that are going to hit it big are going to grow fast. And when you've built your application using something like Azure, that can scale on demand. So as soon as that demand is there, boy, the system just scales and your users, have that great experience. But then if the demand shrinks, boy, we shrink back down too. So you don't have these massive CapEx expenditures in order to meet the peak. If you want to read kind of an example of that, go read the case study that's been published on Callaway Golf. They talk about after a big golf tournament, how when there's been a big visible tournament, how the demand on their website spikes. And before they actually had to prepare and have the CapEx spend to hit the spike. Now, they have a very well-defined set of capacity in Azure. When that spike hits on that Sunday afternoon after, say, Tiger Woods has come from behind again, things spike up and they deliver that demand. Users have great experience, but then the costs come down and it gets back to a normal run rate. That's what small and medium-sized businesses who are really looking for how they're going to break away need.
A couple other questions in the audience.
Ken Clipperton with DCIG. Somewhere along the way in the presentation, you mentioned that a lot of the innovation is around storage.
Yeah.
What are the key innovations most recently in that storage space?
You want to start with Azure, and I'll talk about how we're bringing it, or go ahead and I'll add on.
Well, one of them that we announced today, of course, is Azure Files, which is file sharing as a service on top of Azure Storage. And Azure Storage is the foundation also for infrastructure virtual machine disks. We have some of the innovation that we've got in that space are to get technical erasure coding, which is more efficient storage of the data such that it's still highly available, and yet there's fewer than 3 copies, which you really need 3 copies to be highly available against any kind of disaster. With erasure encoding, we actually get it down to like 1.4 copies effectively. And that drives the whole cost of storage down. So we've got innovations like that. When it comes to Azure, we also have asynchronous georeplication and read-only from secondary support, that GA'd as well. So this is the ability for you to get geo-redundancy just by a click of a button, such that if there was a problem with the region itself failing, or your ability to connect to that region or your customers, that you can fail over your storage accounts to the secondary region, or point your application at the secondary region such that they can still get to that data.
You know, then as I kind of think about how we've taken what we've learned inside of Azure and brought it down onto Windows Server, you know, as you take a look at the growth of the data, and I spent a lot of time today talking about that, you know, most organizations, most analysts are telling us we're going to see a 9x increase in the amount of data being created over the next couple of years. I mean, unheard of numbers. How do you store that? How do you manage the cost and the supply chain to store that kind of data volume that's being created? You know, inside of Azure, all of our storage is direct attached storage. And you know, remember what happened a couple of weeks ago when, you know, the 3 big cloud providers all dropped substantially the cost of storage per gigabyte per month. In order to do that, you've got to have tremendous innovation in storage, because when you're literally charging just pennies per month per gigabyte, you've got to do that in a cost-effective way. And at the same time, you know, we're also delivering with that the ability to have that data replicated in multiple places, so you get the resiliency as well as the availability and the performance all on commodity storage that historically you'd have to have a SAN to do. And so, for example, as I look at the converged systems that are being purchased and deployed around the world, and you take a look at where the costs are in these converged systems, you can take a look at storage, and then you can take a look at the license costs for the software like VMware. And as you take out the storage costs, and as you take out the high cost of the VMware license, the cost of a converged system drops dramatically, because those are 2 of the greatest costs in these systems that are being built and purchased now around the world.
Hey, for those of you watching at home, we're going to send you right away to Adam Hall and Andrew Conway, your foundation session, Enable Enterprise Mobility with Windows Intune, and we'll stick around and answer more questions.
Quick question about the Azure Remote App Services.
Yeah.
When is it available?
Today.
Generally, or is it
Yeah,
beta?
no, preview today.
Preview, and when
Yep.
is it?